Hey guys, what's going on? James here with the trade deadline coming. It is going to be on October 29th. In today's video, we're going to be discussing should the Tampa Bay Buccaneers make a move by the trade deadline, be it buying a player or selling a player. So guys, without further ado, let's talk about it. This is going to be a very interesting week for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, not just because they're coming off of a bye week and all the moves that have been associated with that, roster moves, players getting less playing time, players getting more playing time, and stuff along those lines, but also it's a chance for the Buccaneers to make a trade before the end of the trade deadline. No, not just the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but the rest of the other 31 teams in the NFL always are throwing around stuff, towards the end of the trade deadline, trying to get deals done. You guys just saw the Los Angeles Rams traded with the Jacksonville Jaguars for Jalen Ramsey, and that just goes to show that the NFL is changing. A lot of big time trades are happening more and more now as the years go on. Teams are getting more and more trade happy as the years go on, and I think the Buccaneers are in a unique situation this year because they're not bad enough, in my opinion, to be a team that is going to be major sellers before the trade deadline. They're not a Denver Broncos, they're not a Miami Dolphins, they're not an Atlanta Falcons. They're not bad enough to where they're going to say, screw it, we're selling a lot of our players, doesn't matter, let's build draft assets. But I don't think that they are good enough right now to go for a deep playoff run or a Super Bowl run and say, oh, we're only one player away, and if we get that one player, I think we have a good shot of winning the Super Bowl. I don't think the Buccaneers are in that boat either. I still think they can make the playoffs this year, 2-4. I know the billboard or the whiteboard isn't corrected yet, but 2-4, you're still not out of it, but you're not in a great spot either. So the Buccaneers, they're right in mediocrity limbo right now. Obviously things could change, but that certainly makes making a list of certain targets and certain players the Buccaneers should sell a little bit more difficult to make. But I still did it. I still have some players that I think the Buccaneers are going to consider selling, and I also have some players that I think the Buccaneers are going to consider buying as well. So guys, without further ado, let's get into it. The first player I want to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selling is defensive tackle Beau Allen, who has played 20% of the defensive snaps for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year. He is mainly playing behind Vita Vea, who's been absolutely phenomenal this year, and I think that if you could get a mid to lower round pick for a guy like Beau Allen, I think you have to consider it. Now, I know that everybody's going to say, well, he's a good depth piece, but I think that you have options. Obviously, Terry Beckner Jr., he was just suspended. He is out for the next 4 games due to PEDs. He is out. He is on the practice squad anyway. He's not even a part of the main roster, but I still think that you could bring in a guy like a Jeremiah Ledbetter, or you could move William Golson to nose tackle, and things would be relatively okay. You even have Raheem Nunez-Roche, who is on the main roster right now, who could also fill in for that backup nose tackle job. So I think you have the depth there on the defensive line to potentially move a guy like Beau Allen should a team like, say, the Eagles or the Ravens, maybe the Raiders, I'm not too sure, but teams who need a nose tackle for their 3-4 defense or their 4-3 defense or whatever it is, if they are offering a pick for Beau Allen, I think you have to consider that. Now, Beau Allen, he's been on the team the past couple of years. I believe Jason Light signed him as a free agent, I believe 2 years ago. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong down in the comment section below as always, but since then, Beau Allen, he hasn't done a lot. He hasn't been bad, but he hasn't done a lot. He's mainly been a rotational type of guy, kind of the same role he had when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles, which is a little disappointing because when he was brought in, a lot of people thought that he was going to be a starting defensive tackle, he was going to do some awesome things, and it just ended up that he had pretty much the same role he had with the Philadelphia Eagles. So Beau Allen, the fact that he's playing behind Vita Vea right now, he's not a starter. You have other guys who are already on the roster who could potentially take his spot. I think that if a team comes offering a mid-round pick, maybe a 5th, 6th round draft pick, something along those lines, I think you consider moving a guy like Beau Allen. Next player I want to talk about is William Golson, defensive end, who has played 50% of the Buccaneers' defensive snaps so far this year. And William Golson, I will say, he's been impressing me a whole heck of a lot this year. I've really liked what he's done in run defense. I think that he's done a phenomenal job, and I think that he's been a really, really great benefit to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense so far this year. But much like in the case of Beau Allen, he's been a rotational type of guy. He almost lost his job in the training camp camp and preseason to Jeremiah Ledbetter, who is currently, I believe right now, on the Ravens practice squad. The Buccaneers could still bring him back to the roster, and I think if they did that, this would make this William Golson move a whole lot less painful, considering that Ledbetter pretty much almost had the starting job to begin with. Unfortunately, he came down with an injury. The Buccaneers had to put him on the IR. They released him from the IR with a settlement, and then he went to the Ravens practice squad. Now they can re-sign him back, I believe, at any point right now that the settlement time period has been settled and stuff like that. But I think that you, again, much like in the case of Beau Allen, you have the depth there. You have Rakeem Nunez-Roche. You have, Jeremiah Ledbetter, who could always come back. You have Patrick O'Connor, who is currently on the main roster. You have options there who can replace a guy like William Golson. Options that I've been very impressed with. Rakeem Nunez-Roche, I love him. I think that he could definitely be a starter for this Buccaneers defensive line. Same with Patrick O'Connor. I think he did some very good things in training camp and in the preseason, and I love Jeremiah Ledbetter so much. I also love William Golson, but like much in the case of Beau Allen, if a team comes offering, a 5th round draft pick, a 6th round draft pick, or maybe they even offer a backup offensive lineman or a backup wide receiver or something along those lines, I think you have to consider that. So William Golson, he's the second player I think the Buccaneers should consider trading. There are definitely options there to replace William Golson on the defensive line. You have the depth there, and if you can build more draft assets, I say, you should consider it. Second to last player I want to talk about here that I think the Buccaneers should sell, and this is a really popular one, and that is tight end Cameron Bray, who so far this year has played 34% of the Buccaneers' offensive snaps. Now, this one I think is, very, very, very possible, okay? Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Cameron Bray, I love the guy. I love the guy so much. He's getting his money. He's doing an awesome job, and he has given so much to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he has one of the greatest, undrafted free agent stories, in my opinion, in recent memory. But the fact remains that the Buccaneers just haven't been using him in this offense. 34% of the offensive snaps played this year. That's not good, especially when you compare it to O.J. Howard, who a lot of people have already been complaining he hasn't been used a lot. He's still playing 80% of the Buccaneers' offensive snaps compared to Cameron Bray's 34%. And when you pair that fact up with the fact that the Buccaneers currently have 4 tight ends on the roster, you have O.J. Howard, you have Cameron Bray, you have Anthony Auclair, and you have Tanner Hudson, who is another undrafted tight end, really feel-good story. He is currently on the main roster right now. It leads a lot of people to believe that Cameron Bray could get moved. Now, there's a lot of teams that are interested in tight ends right now. The New England Patriots are interested. The Seattle Seahawks are interested. The Buffalo Bills would more likely than not be interested. The Pittsburgh Steelers may be interested. Who knows. But, there's plenty of teams out there that could use a tight end of the caliber of Cameron Bray. Because when he's on and when he's going, he's, arguably a top 15 to top 10 tight end in this league. And I don't think that's me over-exaggerating to build up his trade value. I do genuinely believe that. We've seen Cameron Bray do some absolutely phenomenal things in the past few years with Jameis Winston. I know Cameron Bray, he's a fan favorite, but if somebody offers, say, a 3rd-round draft pick or a 4th-round draft pick for Cameron Bray, or even offers some of the players I'm going to mention here in a little bit that you need to buy if you're the Tampa, or you need to consider buying if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think you heavily consider a trade of that caliber. Cameron Bray, he's a great tight end and we love him, but he's just simply not getting the playing time he would be getting in years past with Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich in this new Buccaneers offense. So Cameron Bray, I think that if you could get a 3rd-round draft pick, a 4th-round draft pick, or even get a really solid player for him, I think you really need to consider that 100%. The last player I want to talk about, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers potentially selling. And this one, I had some fun with some of these names. I'm going to be honest, just throwing some names out there. Just want to get your guys' thoughts on that. But the last player I want to mention is Ndamukong Suh. And I know people are going to say, hold up, James. Why would the Buccaneers trade Ndamukong Suh? They just signed him. And, I hear what you're saying, but hear what I say when I say this, is Ndamukong Suh, he's a really, really awesome defensive lineman, and he's done some good things for the Buccaneers this year. But he's only on a 1-year contract. His contract is going to run out at the end of the year, and I think if you have an opportunity, again, much like Cameron Bray, to get value for him, you need to take that value. Now, Ndamukong Suh, he's played 76% of the Buccaneers' defensive snaps this year, far and above the other guys that I have mentioned on this potentially, players to trade away list. But Ndamukong Suh, he's been kind of a mercenary type guy, and I will be honest, I've been wrong about Ndamukong Suh and his attitude this year. He's, been a pretty good guy guys so far up to this year. He hasn't done anything that has made me go, come on, Sue, what are you doing? You're being a punk. But, I really haven't seen much from Ndamukong Suh this year that has made me go, wow, he's like the biggest game wrecker I've ever seen. That's been more Vita Vea this year, who's been, getting a chance, who's been dominating that Buccaneers defensive line and really blowing up the double teams and stuff like that. I still think Ndamukong Suh's been doing some good things, but I think the star of the Buccaneers defensive line right now is Vita Vea. And then you also factor in Shaq Barrett, who has been the best Buccaneers pass rusher right now. And Ndamukong Suh almost feels like he's getting lost in the shuffle a little bit. I'm not saying the Buccaneers should trade him. I still think he's playing good for the Buccaneers this year, but I think you need to consider it. Again, if any of the players that I mention on the trade for list are offered to the Buccaneers for a guy like Ndamukong Suh, or if somebody offers, say, third or a fourth round draft pick, maybe a team like the Baltimore Ravens want to get Ndamukong Suh. Teams that want to make that deep playoff run. If one of those teams offers a mid-round pick for Ndamukong Suh, a third-round draft pick, consider it. That's all I'm saying. Just consider it. So, those are my 4 players: Cameron Brate, Beau Allen, William Golson, and Ndamukong Suh. And now we're going to move on to the players that I think the Buccaneers should potentially trade for. Player that I'm going to mention, and again, I had some fun with some of these names. I know a lot of them aren't going to make a whole heck of a lot of sense, but just bear with me. The first name is Kenyan Drake, who has played 58% of the offensive snaps for the Miami Dolphins so far this year. And I know people are going to say, James, running back, why? Hear me out. Okay, just hear me out. I love Kenyan Drake. I love Ronald Jones. I love Peyton Barber. I don't think you have to give up a lot to acquire a guy like Kenyan Drake. And I love Dare Ogunbowale. But I think if you could acquire a guy like Kenyan Drake, I think that could add a lot to the Buccaneers running back core. You would have a running back group of Kenyan Drake, Peyton Barber, Ronald Jones, and Dare Ogunbowale. Peyton Barber, he's probably going to be gone after this year. He's going to go into free agency. He's going to do whatever he needs to do. I believe Kenyan Drake is still under contract. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments section below, but you guys know Bruce Arians. He loves those do-it-all running backs, and I think that Ronald Jones can be that, but I would also not be surprised if he showed some level of interest in acquiring a running back like Kenyan Drake, because it is what it is. I don't know. I'm having fun with this. I'm having fun with this video. Just roll with me on this one. Kenyan Drake, I think the Buccaneers, it's been reported they've already had some level of interest in Kenyan Drake, so just keep an eye on that one. Hey, if we can get him with like a 7th round draft pick, I wouldn't be mad. I would not be mad, okay? I mean, it'd be cool. It'd be cool. So Kenyan Drake, he's the first name I want to talk about is defensive end Leonard Williams from the New York Jets, who's played 77% of the New York Jets defensive snaps so far this year. And, I'm really interested in Leonard Williams, former draft pick of Buccaneers defensive coordinator Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles knows him in and out. He knows how to get the best out of a guy like Leonard Williams. He was one of Todd Bowles' first ever draft picks, so shout out to that. And Leonard Williams could be so special in this Todd Bowles defense. He already has experience in the Todd Bowles defense. I think if you pair him up with a guy like Vita Vea, you would just cause absolute havoc. And also mentioning Shaq Barrett and Carl Nassib as well. Even, maybe you keep Ndamukong Suh as well. Maybe you trade, like, I don't know, a 3rd round draft pick for Leonard Williams, and then your defensive line is Ndamukong Suh, Vita Vea, Leonard Williams with the pass rushers of JPP, Carl Nassib, and Shaq Barrett. Good Lord, that would be scary, and it would just add so much more punch to this Buccaneers defensive front 7 than it already has with the return of JPP. I think that a move like that would make a lot of sense. I know that people are going to freak out and say, oh, James, 3rd round draft pick, what the heck? But Jason Light has done it before. He offered a 3rd round draft pick for Jason Pierre-Paul. That worked out very well for them in year 1, and the only reason we haven't seen a continuation of that momentum from year 1 to year 2 is because Jason Pierre-Paul hurt his neck. So Jason Light isn't afraid to give up high-tier draft picks to acquire talent that he thinks is going to help out the team in a huge way. And I think Leonard Williams could be a player that the Buccaneers definitely consider, especially given the history with Todd Bowles and everything like that, Todd Bowles being his former head coach. I think that Leonard Williams is a sneaky move that could really happen. I really do think it could happen. Bruce Arians has made a lot of trades in the past. Jason Light has made a lot of trades in the past as well. They're not afraid to, both of them, not afraid to give up high-tier draft picks. Keep an eye on Leonard Williams. This is one that I think could low-key happen, okay? Next player I want to talk about is right tackle Jack Conklin from the Tennessee Titans, who the Buccaneers play upcoming this week. And I know people are going to say, with James, they play the Titans this week. Why would they trade for Jack Conklin? Well, it's happened before. The Oakland Raiders literally just traded Garyon Conley to the Houston Texans, and they play each other this week. So it's not out of the ordinary to see something like that happen. But Jack Conklin, he's on the last year of his deal. He's still a relatively young player. I believe he's 26, 27 years old. He plays right tackle, which would be huge for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers considering DeMar Dawson. I think that he's pretty much on the way out. He's getting older. He's probably going to retire soon. He hasn't been playing that well this year anyway. I think that the Buccaneers, if you sign a guy like Jack Conklin, you sign him to a relatively decent contract. Maybe he's making $6-7 million a year at the right tackle position. I think that that is something that you could definitely work with. Before, the injuries that he's had the past couple of years, he was doing absolutely phenomenal for the team. It's just that injuries have really hampered him the past couple of years. And I think, again, much like Leonard Williams, this is a sneaky one that could legitimately happen. The Buccaneers have a need at the offensive line. They don't have a fear of giving up high-tier draft picks. If you could get Jack Conklin, again, for a third, fourth-round draft pick, I think you need to consider that because of the upgrade that he would offer you at right tackle. You would then have an offensive line of Donovan Smith, Ali Marpet, Ryan Jensen, Alex Kappa, and Jack Conklin as your future offensive line for the next maybe 2 years, 2 to 3 years even. I think that'd be a pretty good offensive line moving forward. So Jack Conklin, he's the next guy. I think he would be a nice, young, solid addition to the Buccaneers offensive line. Him, Ali Marpet, Ryan Jensen, Alex Kappa, those four would be awesome. Those four would be absolutely awesome. Donovan Smith, he does do his own things, and he would be, I guess, okay. But Jack Conklin, I think that he would be a wonderful, wonderful addition to the Buccaneers offensive line. Next guy I want to throw in real quick is Washington Redskins tackle Trent Williams. I know everybody's talked about this move to death. Should the Buccaneers trade for Trent Williams? Should they not trade for Trent Williams? I still put him on this list because you never know. They could play him at right tackle. Again, DeMar Dawson, he's been struggling this year with penalties, with missed blocking assignments, stuff along those lines. Trent Williams would be an immediate upgrade at the right tackle position. He's one of the best tackles in football. I know he usually plays left tackle, but having him at the right tackle position, I think, would do wonders for the Buccaneers offensive line. And, he doesn't want to play for the Washington Redskins anymore. I know he's making a lot of money. He's making, I believe, $10-11 million a year right now. But, consider it. Why not? The Buccaneers do need offensive line help, and I think you need to at least consider Trent Williams. Finally, the last two players I want to talk about here. The first one, Patrick Peterson. Both these players are from the Arizona Cardinals, by the way. First one, Patrick Peterson. This is a move, again, that has been talked about forever. This one I put as possibly the most legitimately likely move. And I know the Cardinals have said, oh, Patrick Peterson's not going to get traded, and oh, it's not going to happen, we're not going to trade him. Well, the Jacksonville Jaguars said the same thing about Jalen Ramsey, and they still traded him. Now, do I think the Arizona Cardinals could get 2 first-round draft picks for Patrick Peterson? No, I do not, but I think that if you offered, say, a guy like Cameron Brate and maybe like a second-round draft pick, maybe even a little bit more than that, I think it's definitely possible. And I know people are going to freak out and say, oh, you're going to overpay for Patrick Peterson. I don't think so. Bruce Arians loves Patrick Peterson. He absolutely loves Patrick Peterson to death. He would pay that high price tag for him, and I think it would be worth it. Patrick Peterson, one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL right now. He's 29 years old, I believe. He's still got a couple of years left to him, maybe 3-4 years. And I think that, he's still going to be in his prime until probably the very end. I think he's going to be one of those cornerbacks who's just going to be good all the way till the end. So I think if you're the Buccaneers, you need to consider trading for a guy like Patrick Peterson. I know it's a high price tag, but the secondary could use a veteran. And, if you get a veteran like Patrick Peterson, that's one of the best veterans, if not the best veteran in the business. He could teach all the young cornerbacks the ropes. He could definitely show them and help them out on a lot of things. And, this seems like the most logical trade for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in terms of buying players. Now, the second one I want to talk about, and this one, is going to be interesting. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this in the comments section below, but David Johnson. Could the Buccaneers trade for David Johnson? Again, I had some fun with this one. I know everybody loves Ronald Jones, and I said this in the Kenyan Drake part, and I know a lot of people like Peyton Barber as well, but Bruce Arians, I cannot stress this enough, Bruce Arians loves David Johnson. There was just a situation in Arizona where David Johnson, he's been a little bit banged up this year per the usual. David Johnson, he's had injury problems in the past, but his backup running back did absolutely phenomenal. Edmonds, I believe, had 3 touchdowns, 120-something yards, and just did absolutely phenomenal in David Johnson's absence. So does that potentially make the Arizona Cardinals maybe trade away David Johnson if the Buccaneers offered, say, a second-round draft pick, a third-round draft pick, or maybe even Cameron Brayton, a second-round draft pick, something along those lines? I don't know. If the Buccaneers got David Johnson, he would be one of the best offensive weapons the Buccaneers have had in a long time. He'd be right up there with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in terms of the Buccaneers' top weapons. Bruce Arians would use him a whole hell of a lot, not just as a running back, but as a receiving back as well. He literally formulated his game plan specifically around David Johnson. So I think that, while it doesn't seem that likely, I think Bruce Arians is at least going to call about the availability of a guy like David Johnson and at least see, hey, what's your asking price? So, guys, that's pretty much all of the players that I have listed for the Buccaneers to potentially trade away and trade for. If you guys have any players that you think the Buccaneers should trade away or trade for that I missed, please let me know down in the comments section below. But, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed. But until the next video or the next live stream, I'll see you guys in the next one. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.